Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, February 16th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 198 days. The game against Michigan in 284 days. Late last week, Tony Gerderman and I did an episode that touched on the recommendation that the NCAA should extend the dead period for Division I recruiting from April 15th until at least May 31st. That is not finalized yet, but there is a decent chance it will happen. Then later that night, I read something really well-reasoned and rational about the issue on Twitter. If you've ever been on Twitter, you know how unusual and remarkable that is. It was from a Central Ohio high school offensive lineman named Carter Smith, laid out very clearly and rationally why the current dead period is having such a significant and negative impact on players all across the country. Carter joins me now, and by way of introduction, let people know a little bit about yourself as a football player.
I'm 16. I'm a junior at Olentangy Liberty High School. I'm an offensive tackle, and I currently have 18 Division I offers.
And for those who are wondering, Olentangy Liberty that's the school that Brendan White was from, former Ohio State defensive back. Zach Harrison was from across town at Olentangy Orange. If you're trying to keep your Olentangy high school straight, because that is an area that is growing very quickly and seemingly building a new high school about every 15 minutes. So, Carter, you have gotten a lot of attention online for that tweet. I saw it get retweeted by a bunch of 2022 and 2023 players from Ohio and elsewhere, and along with maybe half of the Buckeye Scoop staff or more. Have you heard from anyone who surprised you or gotten any feedback from any of the schools that are recruiting you?
Well, there were reporters from many different states besides 24/7 reporters, like people for other local channels, such as like the Buckeye Scoop of Minnesota or their form of Notre Dame's, people like that.
Okay. And you've received offers from a bunch of Power 5 programs, including Minnesota, a bunch of other schools in the Big Ten, ACC, SEC, Big 12. When did those offers start coming in for you, and how many of those schools have you actually been able to see in person?
So the only school that I've been on a visit to, unofficial, before the dead period started, was Notre Dame, my sophomore year, before I had any varsity film. The offers started rolling in after my second varsity game, my junior year, against Dublin Kaufman, because they have a lot of great players brought in every single year. They just had 3 players go into Power 5 teams. And, I think being able to handle that kind of strength and that kind of team really shows in my film.
Now, so your junior year, second game of your junior year, that was last fall. So you've gotten, you've got, would you say 18, 19 FBS offers, no chance to visit any of those schools since then. And those offers come from schools ranging from Ole Miss to Northwestern. And those are, in just about every possible way, very different types of schools and very different types of places, very different types of college experiences. So how difficult has it been to try and weigh all of the different factors that are going to go into your decision without actually being able to see a lot of these places and meet the people who you'd potentially be spending the next 4 or 5 years with face to face?
Well, I have 2 main factors that I'm looking for right now in my recruitment. I'm still trying to figure out a third, but right now I think 2 is a good place to start. And that thing that pops up, and it goes around with every single one of these schools, is the people. Because not just the coaches, I need to know the players. I need to know the people who are going to be teaching me what I need to know for the next 4 years. And I need those relationships to last for the next 40. So it's not a 4-year decision, which is what makes this so hard. Which brings me to my second factor, education. Because obviously the NFL doesn't work for every single player. If only that were not true. But the education is probably the most important part throughout this process. But I'm putting it second because obviously I want my relationships to be far more important than everything else.
Building these relationships with people, how difficult has that been to have to try and do that over Zoom or, group text or whatever, as opposed to being able to go see these places in person, meet these people in person, and kind of, have that like face-to-face kind of conversation?
Face-to-face is the most important part of this whole entire process. And it's the most exciting part of this process, which is what makes this dead period so horrible. Being over the phone is nice and all, just having conversations with these coaches, getting to know who they are personally is a huge treat, and getting this much attention from all these schools. But without that face-to-face contact, how are you actually supposed to know who you're talking to, who's going to be coaching you for the next 4 4 years, and it's going to be a huge friend to you for the next 40.
And just to remind people, you are in the recruiting class of 2022. So that means early signing day for you is this December. So we're pretty much 10 months out almost exactly right now. If the dead period gets extended through May, that would leave like a little over 6 months, more than half of which is high school football camp, high school football season, which, when it's a little harder to travel and get out of state. So when you were sort of laying out your plan for your recruitment, like, where did you think you'd be in the process right now, like in terms of visits and camps and that kind of stuff? Did you have a plan for that? And where did you think you would be in that process right now?
Before COVID started, I thought with the process, if I had this much attention, I thought I would probably have half of my official visits done by now. And I would be way further ahead. I would probably have most of my film. But obviously, with other people not being able to play, other states not even having a season at all, I feel like I would have less attention than I did now, if I need to be honest, because, there are kids out there who don't even have that opportunity, who have so much to show. And
yeah. We've heard about all sorts of things that players are doing to kind of work around the existing rules right now, the existing dead period. So, for example, Jack Sawyer's family kind of organizing the Buckeye Bash recruiting event, where they got all the 2021 Ohio State recruits, or as many as they could, together and just kind of hung out off campus and had a real unofficial visit, nothing to do with the school, nothing to do with the coaching staff. A bunch of schools have done that kind of stuff. Coaches are hosting virtual visits over Zoom, that kind of stuff. How much have you been able to take part in those types of events, whether virtual or in person, and how much have they helped with your decision so far?
I don't know anything about getting together with any 22 recruits. That would be so cool. But obviously, I haven't committed yet, so I don't really know who my teammates would be at this point, but I have a general range. However, all these Zoom calls, I'm starting to do way more Zoom visits because there are coaches that are starting to get off of their season. There are coaches that are starting to focus way more on their recruiting and have spring ball start, which means a lot of more open time for their recruits. So these Zoom calls are going to be very key in the process at this point. I'm hoping to get on talking about facilities, talk with their players, stuff like that.
One thing that you pointed out in your post that I think most people probably don't realize is Division II and Division III schools are not on a dead period right now. And they haven't been since last fall. It was, I think, September 1st, they went to kind of like a more normal setup for Division II and Division III, but Division I still on a dead period. So if you're getting recruited by Denison or Ohio Wesleyan, the NCAA is fine with you potentially making an unofficial visit, for example. If you're looking at Toledo or Cincinnati, you can't. So why does that matter so much? First of all, I know you have, we were talking before we hit record, you have a family member who is a Division II athlete who has a completely different set of rules than you do, which is, it's kind of crazy. Why does that matter so much if you're a player heading into his senior year? And what is that like to know your brother can follow one set of rules and you have a completely different set?
Yeah, Liberty has given me so many connections with all these Division I players. Like you said, Brendan White. We have connections with coaches all across the country. And my parents were also Division I athletes at Bowling Green. And they said once they got to campus, they had a gut feeling. They knew that was going to be their home. And after talking with so many other adults who have been in the same shoes as I have, they all said the same exact thing. That gut feeling is the most important part of the process. That's how you will know that your home is there. How are we supposed to do that? We can't make it onto campus. We can't see any of these coaches. How are we supposed to know what we want to do for the next 4 years? We don't, because with that brick wall in the way, the dead period, there's no possible way we should be able to make a decision off of these terms.
And, the visits are a thing that gets lots of attention. And Ohio State had players who committed, signed, potentially early enrolled without actually having to, being able to make any kind of a visit. Some of them didn't even get to campus at all. It was just the first time they're showing up is going to be after they've signed their letter of intent and they're starting their college careers, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But, while those visits get a lot of attention, the fact that right now you can't go to a camp at a program to potentially earn an offer. That's potentially a big deal as well. And that's not just true of people trying to earn an offer somewhere like Ohio State. There are guys in the class of 2021, now maybe 2022. You talked about the guys who didn't get to play a season last fall. That was true of a lot of people. So how do you earn an offer? Well, you go to a camp. Well, right now you can't go to a camp either. So, there could be people missing out on the chance to play D1 ball altogether because they didn't get a chance to camp at whether it's Ohio State or a MAC school or a Sun Belt school or a Big 12 school or wherever it is. So is that something that you've seen impacting either teammates or other players?
I think that's exactly what happened to my brother. He was going into his senior year during the shutdown, during COVID, and he planned to go to at least 5 camps this summer, OSU, Bowling Green, places all over the Midwest, and he didn't have the opportunity to do that. My brother's an incredible defensive lineman, but he didn't get the chance to show his skill off to all these Division I colleges at his peak. And all he had to go off of was his junior and senior year of film. That wasn't enough for him, clearly. I think if he made it to these camps and people got to know his name, he would have better opportunities than he did now. Not that Ashland is a bad place. Like, Ashland is an amazing school with an amazing football program, but I think he could have gone a little further had those camps have been open.
Yeah, and that's the what could have been is something that is it's a tough thing to kind of wrap your head around, that that it's not I couldn't do it. It was I didn't get a chance to try. That's a tough thing. And that's something, you've got someone in your house who's going through that, but that's something that's been repeated all across the country. There are a lot of people. This is the NCAA loves telling people how important a college scholarship is and how that can be a generational change. And, the first person in your family to get to go to college and all that kind of stuff. There are people somewhere in this country who are not going to get that chance to earn that scholarship and go to college, be the first one in their family to go to college because they didn't get a chance to play, didn't get a chance to go to a camp, didn't get a chance to earn that offer. That's it's something you may not ever know their names, but they are out there somewhere, and that is a big part of this story for sure. You in your recruitment are getting recruited by a couple of former Ohio State assistants turned head coaches, Luke Fickle at Cincinnati, Jeff Hafley at Boston College. Any funny stories with those guys? Want to share your impressions of them? Hafley, we only had Hafley for 1 year to cover at Ohio State, but Hafley was one of my favorites to cover at Ohio State. Very entertaining guy to talk to.
Actually, I decided, because I knew Jeff Hafley lived in Kinsale at one point, and he was a member here. And me and my dad, we go golfing every summer. So I decided to take a look at our history for who we've golfed with, because sometimes there are like duos in the golf, in like the, what's it called? The book. And you can join random people. And a few years earlier, before all this happened, when I was around like 13 or 12, or what year was he here?
He was here in 2019.
Yeah, 2019. Me and my dad were actually golfing with him at one point. We were in a random duo. We had no idea who he was. All he did was, we were out on the course with him, and I decided to look back, and I thought that was so cool that I had no idea that I was golfing with the future head coach of Boston College.
That's pretty fantastic. Yeah, Hafley is someone who, when he left, it was, I think Ohio State fans were all very bummed that he was taking his defensive acumen with him. I can tell you a lot of people on the Ohio State beat were very bummed that he was taking his personal skills and very entertaining interviews along with him. He is a fun dude to talk to. So
no doubt.
Carter, thank you very much. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us and sort of share your perspective on this whole thing, because it is a story that we've been talking about a bunch, but I don't know if people have completely understood the whole picture and the real impact on the ground that decision is having, that the NCAA is having, and is considering extending as well. So thank you for joining us, and thank you all for joining us this morning. Make sure you check out all of our great podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker. You can find them all of those places. Have a lot of great shows. Tony Gerderman and I will be dropping a new episode of Buckeye Weekly sometime later today. And you can find that and all of our other great podcasts just by searching Buckeye Scoop. You can subscribe right there. Also, leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're at it. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.